In the beginning, he was nothing more but a random poster.
And they're so gay. They're just so... I think even people go, my god, these kids are f***s.
But then, fast forward into the future. He became a very important figure of an online movement that took the internet by storm. And by YouTube's 2014 standards, he managed to accumulate a lot of subscribers. And as more and more people heard about him and his involvement, he did something that no ordinary YouTuber would ever think of doing. He shut down his own YouTube channel. But why? Why would he just close down his own channel and not only lose a lot of his hard-earned subscribers, but also lose his momentum? Why? So, what now? Now that the storm is technically over, you could say, how's life for him nowadays? Only one way to find out. Everyone, welcome to today's episode of Hero or Villain, where I discuss if today's topic is either a hero or a villain.
When you're going through Tumblr and you're looking at cultural appropriation, you're going to see a lot of posts about dreadlocks.
Okay, look at the drinks they like. They get up on stage and they sing about Faygo. That's the name of their soft drink. Come on. Come on, seriously? Faygo. You drink something called Faygo. Really? Really? And you don't think people are going to call you... You drink something called Faygo.
And these groups of people, these social justice warriors, they're not activists. You look at the groups they've infested and destroyed, and there's a long history of it. Go look at the science wars. FBI put kid next to me in DMV to invoke response. I said I would put a gun in his mouth.
Or maybe everything in between. We'll see. These images used to be associated with a man that is only known by his supposed real-life name, Jim. Or maybe it isn't. And throughout his almost 15 years of YouTube, he's had many online handles. Jim81Jim, Games Good Me Bad, Midlife Jim, Internet Aristocrat, Brightside Bob, and most importantly, Mr. Medicare. And since nothing else is known about him, other than his supposed first name and birth year, 1981, he is mostly anonymous, because nobody knows who he really is or what he looks like. This, I believe, is what makes today's episode very interesting, in my opinion. But anyways, throughout the years, he has become something of a cultural icon, at least on the internet. But normally when an individual is something like that, most people know about them because they, in a cool and hip way, have become mainstream. You know, like pop icons, sports stars, actors, singers, and authors. Now, in the past, before the internet, before YouTube, an outlet for an icon used to be books, and then the radio, and then the TV, and now, in the 21st century, it's the internet. And if these icons look great and have a wonderful personality, then they will stick with you. They will stick with you for a long time. And if you're not a fan yourself, then somebody else might be. And as long as these fans, or non-fans, keep talking about these icons, then that person will keep the spirit of that icon alive for years to come. If you want to know what I mean by that, then please, let me show you. So, let's pretend you're on your way to the saloon/hairdresser to get a haircut. You finally arrive, and while you wait for your turn, you decide to sit down and browse their catalogs. You flip through the pages, and then suddenly you see yet this man, and immediately his name pops up for you in your head, or maybe his music, or both maybe, because you most likely know who this man is, but the person who sits next to you doesn't. And they kindly ask you who that man is, and you gladly explain. The man inside that catalog is Elvis Presley, and worldwide, he is known as the king of rock and roll. But before you can explain any further, it's finally your turn to get a haircut. And so, you hastily pick a haircut from the catalog. The hairdresser cuts your hair, you pay him or her, and then you leave. But, the saloon example aside, there are so many more popular worldwide icons like Elvis Presley. There's Michael Jackson, there's Marilyn Monroe, and Bob Marley, and etc, etc, etc. And these people became icons thanks to their profession, thanks to their talents. And thanks to the TV and radio, their names and faces are known by a lot of people. So even if you're not a fan yourself, someone else might be. And they're not going to stop talking about these icons. They're gonna keep on singing their songs or watch their movies for years to come. Some people even recognize these icons by their hairstyles. So if you would see somebody walk downtown with a pompadour, then maybe you think about Elvis Presley. Or if you're of my generation, millennial, then maybe you think of Japanese animes. Yes, the king of rock and roll is that influential. But, you know, aside from already established brands, a recognizable icon doesn't just apply to real people. No, it can also apply to cartoon characters like Disney's Mickey Mouse, Sega's Sonic the Hedgehog, or Nintendo's Super Mario, or Son Goku from the Dragon Ball series. A lot of people, especially of my generation, are familiar with these fictitious characters. Real-life icons and cartoon characters aren't just exclusive to the TV and radio. They may also pop up in certain patterns. For example, let's say you're at a cafe, it is you and two other friends. You order coffee and a big round pastry, and then when you all remove the coffee mugs from the table, there you see yet 3 circles that make a pattern that would probably remind you of Mickey Mouse. And then your large pastry arrives. One of you slice it, and there you see yet that sliced pastry. It probably reminds you of Pac-Man. This too is another way to see an icon in your day-to-day life. Certain things or patterns would probably remind you of it. As for what all of this has to do with Jim, our anonymous main topic, well, it's just that he doesn't have anything like that. He doesn't have any memorable hairstyle or instrument or song. His instrument of choice was, or is, his microphone or maybe headset, but does that count? Does that count as an instrument? Or even though he is something of an icon, he instead is more of a humble weatherman? He was even very humble when he livestreamed his supposed doxed information.
Meme Machine James, I called your doc's phone number and an Asian lady answering. Sorry. Okay. James, I called your doc's phone number and an Asian lady answered saying, "No Jim here, wrong number." Whoops.
See, even after he had supposedly been doxed, allegedly, he just laughed it off like it was nothing. But, of course, the names and faces of that forum post probably isn't him. At least, I don't think so. When I try to look up his real life name and face, I am always greeted with different candidates. When I see those candidates, and when I hear their voices, I become even more confused, honestly. And then I end up going back to this image, this avatar he's been using on his current YouTube account.
Oh wait, no, those aren't comparable at all. That's apples and oranges. That's apples and a pile of horse.
It is speculated that he is using a voice changer, or maybe it's just a bad headset microphone, who knows. But, the date of birth, name, and face are still speculations and haven't been 100% proven. But actually, years prior, this image wasn't always what I had in mind when I heard his voice. For me, when I heard his voice for the first time, I used to think of him in his aristocrat avatar, you see. But for others, they may think of him with his angry smiley face. And for some, in the here and now, they may think of him in this avatar, which is allegedly a mix between Scout from Team Fortress 2 and Slenderman. As for what all of this has to do with Jim and what he is known for, well, online, he's a commentator, you could say. A YouTuber? Question mark? That moved his videos over someplace else. But before we proceed any further, everyone, please scroll down to the description box below and read through the rules and explanation for this video. It's important. All done? Good. Let's continue. I remember the kind of content YouTube used to have in a time frame of, I'd say, 2006 to 2009 or so. Back then, when YouTube was new, its content creators at the time had to make do with whatever they had. So it was not out of the ordinary that a lot of people back in the 2000s recorded with their crummy webcams or cell phones. And it was also not so very uncommon for people to do their editing with Windows Movie Maker. YouTube back in the day had its classical content, but that can also be something subjective. One person may say Smosh, another may say anime music videos, and another may say anime abridged series, but the question and answer to what YouTube's classical content used to be can vary from person to person. It can vary from mostly stolen Flash movies from Newgrounds, mostly stolen mainstream songs, anime music videos.
Finally, it gets uploaded. And what happens? An hour later, you turn your computer back on, and you click on the video and you go there, and what's waiting for you below the video? A giant pink bar with the words, third-party content removed via WMG, Warner Music Group.
And the joke with anime music videos.
Every AMV on YouTube has Linkin Park in it. I mean, that's, like every AMV you go to, it's got Naruto and it's got fucking Linkin Park in it.
But let us not lump everybody together in the same basket, Disturbed, Evanescence, or System of a Down. Not all AMVs were just Linkin Park. Subbed anime episodes, anime parodies, aka abridged series, YouTube poops, how-to videos, dogs, cats and baby videos, let's plays, but back then I think it was called something else actually, but some of those early let's players were with or without a webcam, or sometimes no commentary. It would vary. At this point in YouTube's life, mid to late 2000s, there technically was no PewDiePie. Technically not, but not until the early 2010s. The angry video game nerd and people that wanted to emulate him. But aside from these, YouTube also had a realistic side to it, like on-screen comedy, Smosh, or the Wine Cone. And if you wanted something more serious and realistic, you also had vlogs. Some vloggers would upload daily, weekly, or monthly. It would vary. Now, one thing that set YouTube apart from TV were response videos. Now, I don't want to go too much into detail with YouTube's discontinued response feature. It'll take too long. There are videos that can cover that for you, but in a nutshell, nowadays when you make a response video, for instance, my response to Richard or something like that, it's not the same as it used to be back when YouTube was new. And last example on the list, there were commentary videos. And one of those commentators from back in the 2000s just so happens to be Jim81 Jim and his many, many alternative accounts such as Games Good Me Bad and Midlife Jim. And that will be it for today. Everybody, thanks for joining me in this Part 0 overtour of Mr. Madiker. I'll see you all next week or next month. Bye bye for now.